Hey guys, welcome to Realization Hub. My name is Michelle Dinu, and I'm an intuitive counselor, energy healer, channeler, and astrologer. I teach people how to manage their energy and develop their intuition so they can navigate their spiritual transformation like a boss. Today's video is an energy update for the full moon in Capricorn so that you can get a nice energetic perspective on the current energies and how they may be impacting you, your healing journey, and how you're overall expanding and growing in your own personal spiritual transformation. Let's go ahead and get into this full moon in Capricorn. All right, so the full moon in Capricorn is going to be happening for us on July 10th, 2025, which is a Thursday at 10:38 a.m. Hawaii time. But the full moon in Capricorn is going to be at 18 degrees Capricorn. That means if you have any Capricorn placements like your sun, moon, rising, or even personal placements like Mercury, Venus, or Mars in Capricorn, you may be impacted more by this full moon. About 15 degrees to about 21 degrees Capricorn. This is going to impact you the most, especially if you have any other placements in the cardinal signs, which would be Aries, Cancer and Libra, all of those signs, especially within that range of 15 degrees to 21 degrees, are going to feel this full moon the most. And you guys may or may not know this, but as I'm recording these videos and going over the astrology, I am tuning in to the energies and I'm kind of both reading astrology from more of like an astrological perspective, but I'm also feeling the energies and interpreting them more on a psychic level. And so just bear with me if it's a little bit non-linear or certain things are coming to me at certain times. I'll try to both point out the astrology as well as some of the images I may be seeing that are more intuitive, as well as anything else I'm getting about these transits. So, the first thing I want to point out about this Capricorn full moon is that the full moon is always going to be in opposition to the sun, which makes a full moon a rebalancing that's occurring within the season of Cancer. And so, Cancer, for example, we're in Cancer season, the sun is in Cancer season right now. And Cancer is a feminine energy. It's very sensitive, feminine energy. It's very creative and nurturing and watery, emotional. Cancer really cares for others, loves to connect with home and family. And oftentimes within Cancer season, patterns related to our home and family and even ancestry can arise to the surface. People that we care about, people that we want to protect, and our overall ability to build and have emotional security and emotional safety are really important for this archetype of Cancer. Then we have the full moon. The full moon being in Capricorn, the opposite of Cancer. Capricorn is an archetype that is very mature. It's still a feminine energy, but it's an earth energy. And so Capricorn can be not only practical, but very mature. It's ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is known for being like the grandfather. And anytime you have transits with Saturn, for example, they can be very maturing, where you're coming into more commitment, more responsibility. You're putting in a lot of hard work. And so Capricorn is an archetype, especially on a spiritual level, that knows how to initiate action, is a very practical leader, and knows how to build something, build a life, put in structure for the sake, put in structure and boundaries and systems in order to build a legacy. Capricorn is really gifted at spiritual ascension, can initiate something from an emotional place or a deeper place or more of a spiritual place. And then over time, Capricorn can take one step at a time up this mountain all the way up to the summit. And so Capricorn energy knows the benefits of putting in the work and delaying short term gratification for long term results. And so Capricorns are well known to kind of be very resilient in that they can go through lots of work, um, keep going up the mountain, keep ascending in their status in the world. This archetype in Capricorn really appreciates, really needs a type of acknowledgement in the world, respect in the world, and status in the world. When we have a full moon, we're basically looking at an energy of completion. We're also looking at an energy of choice, where we could make a choice or pivot in our story. We could be looking at a harvest, something that we can celebrate. We can also be looking at something that comes to clarity at this time, something that gets illuminated. And we can also be looking at the energy of release. Energetically, the full moon is a natural time for all of us to have a type of emotional release or physical release or energetic release or subconscious release or some kind of release in our patterns. So, since the full moon is at 18 degrees, in Capricorn. That means it's going to be in the second decan of Capricorn, which gives it more of a fixed energy. This is the type of Capricorn energy where we're not just initiating something, but we are on the long term journey. We are holding steady results. We are building our value. We are coming into more wealth. We are coming into more structure and boundaries that help us maintain a sense of self-worth and value and abundance in our lives. Now, there's something that is coming up about this full moon that I want to talk about, and it has to do with the energy of Saturn, because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And a lot of times people look at Saturn as a difficult planet. It's considered a malefic planet and can definitely bring up hardships. But when we look at it from a very neutral, energetic lens, what we get is a planet that is almost like a spiritual architect. It has a very holistic picture of time. And so when we have transits with Saturn, it can help us tune into a journey that we're on, an experience where we might not be aware of the future and what the future holds. But Saturn does have kind of a holistic view of what we're building in this lifetime and what we're maturing into in this lifetime and how to embody that in this lifetime. And so when we have like a transit with Saturn, the information that we get at that time could be difficult or sobering or hard on some level, but it's there to help us grow up and be aware of what we need to do now so that we can build something in the future. You can think of it as like buying, like let's say you buy a house and you're really excited about the house, but then you have like an inspector come in and it's Saturn. Saturn comes into the house and you have a transit with Saturn, and the inspector starts to inspect the entire house. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you have a major issue with this plumbing. And it's a little bit of a downer, right? To get that news, like, oh, I have this major issue with plumbing. I just bought this house and have a major issue with plumbing. But the good news is that if you do the hard work and you invest in new plumbing, you're not going to have major issues down the line. The fact that you found out about the plumbing is a blessing, right? Because if you didn't get that house inspected and you just bought the house and figured everything was okay, and then you could have had a major plumbing issue down the line, you could have destroyed the whole house, you could have had a big leakage that damaged, the ceilings or the floors or something. And you could have had like a mold issue or something. But the fact that you found out about the plumbing beforehand is a blessing and a gift in that you can work hard on it, you can renovate it, and you can prevent some nasty things from happening just by showing up, committing, and doing the work. Right. And so this is how Saturn works. You can think of it as like a spiritual architect that comes into our lives in specific transits that we have with Saturn to help us kind of be aware of the full picture and what we need to do now so that we can make boundaries that are important to us, so that we can come into authority, so that we can come into higher status, so that we come into more self-respect, and so that we can like build whatever legacy we're here to build. And so this full moon in Capricorn, to me, when I'm looking at the energy, is a little bit more of a harvest energy. It's kind of like when fruit is ripe and you're ready to cut it off the tree. It's a moment of harvest that I see of something that we've been working hard for, and we start to see some results for it. It might not be all the results we're looking for in our lives, but we are starting to see some form of results. And in my opinion, when I'm looking at this full moon, because we have the sun in Cancer, right? We're in Cancer season, and we also have Jupiter in Cancer, and we just had that new moon in Cancer, which was this massive activation and expansion in our feminine energy. What I'm sensing about this full moon is kind of how in our own personal feminine energy, we are coming into a higher status within ourselves. We are coming into more self-respect with our feminine energy. We are coming into more boundaries with our feminine energy. We are coming into more personal authority with our feminine energy. And we finally start to see some fruits of that in our outer world, and in our standing in our world in some way, whether that be with money, our wealth, our finances, our self worth, or just something that we've been building over time and maybe not seeing a lot of results. This is where I think, on a personal level, we could start seeing some results. Even if they're not large, we could be seeing some results here. Now, what's really interesting about this full moon is that we have the sun in Cancer in a sextile to the south node and in a trine to the north node. And we have the moon in a trine to the south node and a sextile to the north node, creating this square rectangle like pattern in the sky with two oppositions. And that's called a mystical rectangle, which on the outside we could maybe appear calm, but on the inside we might be feeling tense. And this is definitely where, we are on a soul level, with the sun here in Cancer, we are really streamlining and going in the direction of our dreams. We're going in the direction of our intuition. We're going in the direction of trusting and surrendering to the unknown. We're allowing like our spiritual experience to guide us at this time, right? And we have the opportunity to draw on some of the gifts of the South Node and Virgo to be discerning, to pay attention to details, um, to use our own critical energy to help prune and cut away things that no longer serve us so that we can move forward, right? And this is overall supportive, even though it could feel tense. And then with the moon here, the moon in trine to the south node, we may be really illuminating something karmic that is ready to release during this full moon. With the south node here and Mars at 13 degrees approaching the south node this month, we're likely going to be releasing some kind of karmic old tendencies that uh, create conflicts for us, that create challenges for us. Um, we could be cutting cords. We could be releasing old perfectionistic tendencies. We could be looking at the difference between serving others and being enslaved to others. Where has that energy of Virgo become like sickened? Where has it become um, suppressed? Where has it become outdated? And in this case, I see a lot of fears um, related to Virgo. I'm seeing a lot of um, energy related to like being afraid of details, and like the details have more power over us. It's kind of like when you're walking in a minefield and you're walking in the field and all of a sudden you start noticing there's mines in the field and you're like, oh my gosh, I could take one little step, and accidentally have this backfire kind of experience. And those are fears. That's not real. Those are lies. Those are stories that we tell ourselves about conflict and about challenges and about the terrain that we're navigating, where we're letting these small little details hold so much power over us and our ability to move forward, and where we're getting stuck in our heads and kind of like, overthinking things and, figuring out all the details. And when we really need to just trust our intuition, embrace that North Node energy, where that North Node and Pisces energy, where we can be compassionate for ourselves, we can listen to our intuition, we can trust the unknown, we can surrender to whatever soul's journey that we're having, whatever healing journey that we're having, whatever transformation that we're having, and really streamline towards the direction of our higher potentials, our higher dreams, and overall our soul's journey, our spiritual journey that we're on, which is totally non-linear. Things might not be making sense at all right now, but nonetheless, we're allowing us to be spiritually and intuitively guided through an experience, right? To get to where we need to go on a personal level. And so, with this trine here, especially with Mars, this is allowing us to be, take practical action. Around this full moon, there might be like an illumination, a culmination, a harvesting, a pivot in our story. And we have the support of our, physical energy. With Mars here, we have the ability, on especially a mental level, with it being in Virgo, to be aware of the details, to get organized and to take practical action, towards something that can help us elevate our self-respect, elevate our status, elevate our reputation, and come into higher authority, especially with our feminine energy. So with that said, the full moon is ruled by Saturn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And then this is where I think the full moon can get sobering for us. Just like, Capricorn is all about maturing. This could be more of, a sobering that's happening at this time on a collective level. But I'm going to be keeping this more on a personal level. Okay. Saturn is here in 1 degree of Aries. Okay, and it's still in this tight conjunction with Neptune. Saturn is all about creating boundaries and building something and like restricting something, while Neptune is kind of the opposite energy. It's very spiritual, it's very dreamy, and it's can brings up, our illusions and delusions and confusion, while Saturn brings up fear. But Neptune can also kind of dissolve things, and so when we have these two energies so close together, there could be something that's confusing in our lives on a personal level, something that's confusing, something that is scary, something that's scaring us, and an overall dissolving of spiritual energies and a rebuilding and embodying of new energies within us and new essence within us. This is an epic, like, I just want to say on a collective level, this is an epic new beginning and initiation that's happening right now on the planet. And I could get into more of the collective conversation, but I'm not quite sure I want to go there. I want to try to keep it on a personal level. Um, but on a personal level, we just had Neptune go retrograde, and I believe that happened on July 4th. That was on July 4th, Neptune went retrograde. Now, when Neptune goes retrograde, this is when any kind of fantasy, delusion, or illusion, or confusion that we have starts to go through an unveiling. Any illusion that we're under, we start to strip the veil, we start to see things a little bit more clearly, and we get to say, like, oh, I missed that, or oh, I didn't see that, or oh, I thought it was like this, but it's really like that. And with it so close to Saturn, these stripping of the veils that we're doing, a stripping of illusions, kind of revealing and exposing things, could be very maturing for us, very exposing for us, and very sobering, for us on some level, on a personal level. We are still kind of coming out of a square with Jupiter. We had a new moon in Cancer. It was conjunct Jupiter, but we had this square with Saturn, which means this big expansion that we're having in our feminine energy is delayed. It requires us to rework things. It requires us to go back and heal something. try it again, do something different, restructure things before we are able to really launch something new in our lives and see the major results that it could bring us, the bigger results that it can bring us, the blessings that it can bring us, the opportunities that it can bring us. And that's because with this new moon that happened with Cancer, Saturn was squaring it with Neptune. And both Neptune and Saturn are retrograding this month, and they're going to be retrograding for months, before they turn direct. They're going to be going back into Pisces before they go back into Aries. And it's going to be until next year where, they kind of come back to where they were now. And so this is when I'm talking about a long journey around this expansion of feminine energy that's occurring. It's both an initiation, but it requires us to really get clear, get a lot of clarity, stripping the veils in our lives of illusion and delusion, maturing, sobering up, and doing the work and healing, right? And this full moon in particular is going to be very healing for us, because one thing and I can point out in general is that this full moon in Capricorn is squaring Eris in Aries, and Eris in Aries is right next to, it's in conjunction with Chiron, the wounded healer. So something difficult, some wounds could be difficult that are coming up to the surface, wounds that have been suppressing our feminine authority, wounds that have masculine wounds that have been possibly suppressing how we have been possibly misusing or taking advantage of. Like, hold on, I'm just getting a lot of information at once. What I'm sensing is that because we're in Cancer season and we've got this kind of square with Eris and this conjunction with Eris and Chiron and this square to the moon, that's like a T square, right? So what I'm sensing about this, because we're in Cancer season, there are family wounds coming up to the surface. There are family wounds, ancestral wounds, caregiving wounds, emotional wounds, even creative wounds related to our feminine energy, wounds related to our mothers, wounds related to other female relationships, wounds related to um, masculine energy. But it's all about our status, and it's all about our wealth, and it's all about our, personal authority. And these are wounds that have, in my opinion, seem like they've been, like, when I'm looking at an image of it, it's kind of like they've been, holding and suppressing feminine energy, holding and suppressing feminine energy and kind of forcing feminine energy to do a lot of the dirty work, as far as like how we serve others and how we give our energy to others and how we share with others and how we heal others and how we protect others and care give to others. It's almost like something about it reminds me of dirty water. Like, it's just been tainted, it's not been clear, it's been done out of fear or control or domination, and so I'm really sensing that this full moon is going to bring up a wound to the surface related to the feminine. And there's almost like an activism energy within us, possibly a rage, possibly an anger, possibly just one of those shifts in consciousness that we're having where we're just done with something and we start to purge this wound. And that looks difficult. That means we probably have to like sit down and really do the work. We might have that part of us that just wants to react and, create some chaos, um, like disrupt things. Um, but really we're doing a full integration around leadership, embodying, sensitive but assertive, confident, practical leadership, as a female or as in our feminine energy. So it's kind of like an integration moment, is what I'm sensing. Something wounded that was kind of hidden and kind of dark coming up to the surface. We have to, do some integration work, do some shadow work, and let it go. Let go of the energy, integrate the part of us that needs liberating. I mean, look at this. We have Lilith at 11 degrees in Scorpio. It's squaring Mercury and it's trining Jupiter, right? So there's this continuance of this story of liberating our feminine energy and having to kind of do the work in our communication for our relationships, in our thinking and communication. So this is like a psychological, spiritual, feminine kind of wounding coming up to the surface related to our masculine and feminine energy and the dynamics between the masculine and feminine energy. And it's kind of like that psychological, spiritual, intuitive kind of wounding coming up to the surface, possibly related to ancestry and family, coming up to the surface to be liberated, integrated, and healed. And that's the most difficult thing about this moon. It could be triggering something old that feels tender, but needs to be dealt with boundaries. Having the full moon in Capricorn, this could bring up a moment where we are fully embodying our boundaries, coming into our spiritual authority, saying no, putting our foot down, laying out some structure, creating some practical structure so that we actually feel safe or secure on some level, especially on an emotional level. Now, overall, with this restructuring going on with Saturn and Neptune here, I was noticing that, we are, first of all, again, more stuff is coming to me all at once. But when I tune into this restructuring going on with Neptune, like this is where I feel like things are getting exposed to us. The illusions are dropping. Like if we have any psychic veils, spiritual veils that are creating confusion in our lives, we start to see it. So it might be that you had this issue like 3 months ago, and you're like, why is this issue like this issue? And I'm stuck in this issue and I can't seem to move through this issue. And I'm feeling stuck on this issue. And like, I can't figure out this issue. And it's so confusing. And like, I'm supposed to go in this direction, but this seems to not be working. So what's the deal? Right. And as Neptune starts to go retrograde, we start to expose it. We start to see, oh, that's the issue. Like, oh, that's the interference in my life. Oh, that's the relationship that's messing with me. Or, oh, that's the pattern inside of me, or that's the wound, or it's like we're exposing something, in our lives that we need to see so we can say, oh, that is the issue. That's what's getting in the way of me launching this new beginning or getting, something new started in my life, or, initiating a dream that I have, or really manifesting a dream that I have. This is what's getting in the way. It's like exposing something, right? And then Saturn will be direct during this full moon, but very shortly after, in 2 days, on July 12th, Saturn's going to turn retrograde. So whatever happens around this full moon, it kind of marks this illumination. It brings some sort of clarity where very soon after, we're going to be reworking some things on a collective level and even in your own personal lives. And so once we get this exposure to like a veil releasing in our lives, we get some kind of clarity about something, then it's like, oh, well, now I have to go back and I have to like clean this up, or I have to do this differently, or I have to build this before I move forward, right? I have to build something before I move forward. I have to implement boundaries before I move forward. I have to do something differently so that I can move forward, right? And so that's the kind of energy I'm sensing around the full moon. Another thing I want to point out here is Uranus. Uranus has moved into Gemini on July 6th. So that was Sunday, whenever you're watching this. That was Sunday, July 6th. Uranus pops into Gemini at 0 degrees, right? But during this full moon, this is when we start to get clarity. And we start to get some clarity about a shift that's happening on Earth, right? And so, on a collective level, this could highlight something that's really sobering, you know, in which we have a collective shift occurring on Earth. And we start to get clarity about this new energy that we're in together, that would require us to be adaptable, being an immutable sign, require us to be informed, okay, and to educate ourselves and to learn and to communicate with each other and to really embrace a lot of different perspectives. you know, Gemini is all about lots of dualistic perspectives, nuances, and different information and facts and figures. And this is where, on a personal level in your life, you might be interacting with relationships or on a social level, interacting with people who have a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different opinions, a lot of different facts and figures and knowledge on a lot of different topics, right? And like, this is kind of where, through our own education, through our own learning, through our own curiosity, through our own communication, we could have a breakthrough in our lives. We could create a lot of change happening in our lives. And so when Neptune and Saturn both go retrograde with this sextile here with Uranus, this could be a time where we have to learn something new, where we might have to go out of our way to like study something, implement something, start something, and so let's say you started a business and you're like, "Oh, I'm selling hats," and then all of a sudden you realize like, "Oh, like I live I live in a tropical place, so I can't sell these beanie hats." And then you have to go back and figure out how to create an online business so that you can sell hats to people in different places in the world where they need hats, like beanies, instead of having to sell it like at the farmer's market someplace in a tropical place. I'm just giving an example of like where you get some clarity about something and then you have to go back and learn some skills, maybe some skills regarding technology or learning some knowledge, so that you can implement a system, implement structure, implement boundaries, build something that you're ready to initiate in your life or wanting to initiate in your life. And again, this initiation that's happening for all of us is a higher potential. It's kind of a multidimensional full moon, in that we might be tapping into a higher potential that where in which we could have a breakthrough and kind of elevate ourselves into a new reality in which we have a lot more respect and value and even money and finances, and where we might have to kind of get and shift into that potential. It might involve us, embracing some form of technology or um, innovation or building something new in a new way involving technology, or innovating our communication in some way, or um, learning something new, you know um, like actually collecting more knowledge or being curious about more perspectives and more knowledge, and even networking and socializing and reaching out to people with Venus here at 6 degrees. Like, definitely, there could be something, you know, um, there could be something changing in our relationships that regarding our overall evolution and transformation at this time, with the trine there with Pluto. By the way, Saturn's also in a sextile with Pluto, and and Pluto's in a trine with Uranus. And so Pluto represents that planet of our soul and our soul's evolution, and it's in Aquarius. And so this is where, we on a personal level are going through a transformation around, how we contributing our gifts to the world for the betterment of humanity, essentially, even if that's in a small way or a big way or whatever way, but it's the way we show up and embody and, take our gifts, take our knowledge, and use it for a higher purpose, um, and a higher structure and a higher creation in society, right? And so with this trying to, Uranus, as well as this trine to um, Venus. There's definitely some kind of evolution happening in our relationships through communication and technology. Um, and even some wounds coming up to the surface that are coming through on a relational level for us to, release and integrate and work through for our overall evolution. That's overall positive, but the difficult part of this is dealing with the wounding, right? Dealing with the wounding. And so, whatever you're restructuring in your lives, whatever you're getting clarity on, whatever you're trying to initiate, whatever's being initiated at this time, um, it takes time. There's definitely delayed results with this, but it could definitely elevate your sense of self-respect and value and wealth and overall status in the world. Like if you embrace the work, if you embrace the journey, if you commit to it, then you could really build something that gives you results in the long run. And this is kind of like a step in that cycle. The full moon is kind of a culmination and maybe a celebratory event. It might be like a milestone that you're hitting in this overall process, but definitely something worth celebrating and acknowledging. All right. So, overall, this full moon in Capricorn is going to be a moment of healing where we are allowing home and family wounds and ancestral wounds that affect our own personal authority, our status, our reputation, our wealth, and what we're building in the world. It's going to allow those wounds to come up to the surface and allow and continue to allow an expansion um, in our masculine and feminine energies, in our relationships, right? And especially those that we care about. And this is kind of a solidifying full moon. It's going to be allowing us to come into more of our authority on some level, more of our value on some level, more of our boundaries on some level, especially with things that have hurt us, that have caused wounds for us that we need to heal. Um, but overall, an incredibly expansive chapter, you know, um, in how we are initiating something in our lives and having to go back and really do the work and get a lot more clarity as we innovate and build something new together in society as well as in our own lives and our own transformation. When we have Neptune, Saturn, Pluto, and Mercury going retrograde this month, what we're doing is we're taking back our power, we're cleaning up some karma, we're unveiling and exposing the truth, and we are, reworking and reprocessing things and, reworking our communication and going within, to rework something inside of us. This is going to be more of an internal state. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with me here as I talked about the full moon. I look forward to seeing you next time. And if you've been watching this video, please leave me a comment in the videos. Let me know if you have any placements in Capricorn. Let me know if what house this full moon is happening in your chart. If it's your first house, your sixth house, your seventh house, your eighth house, whatever house you have Capricorn in, let me know and I'll give you a little mini insight about this full moon for you. And let me know what placements you have in Capricorn, especially if you have any placements in these later degrees of Capricorn. All right, guys. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.